Welcome to another Compliance Tuesday session. I'll start with a disclaimer, as this is not a legal advice as such. That is always necessary. Today, bonjour. We are talking about a French legislation, the number 2022-748, and the subtitle is also clear. It's the French being en route towards the 2030 goals. So it's in the context, as always, you will have slides with an URL when required that goes to relevant information. There's a lot of guidance documents that we have found and then used ourselves and or created ourselves as info slides for Productipedia, and that will all be in the total package that will be available for those that have signed up. People are still signing in. It was a popular topic demanded by many. I need to thank my colleague Saskia for pushing me to put this on the agenda as a breaking session. 160 people signed up in total, and not everybody can join from the time zone here, but they will participate in another way later. For those who don't know, Productipedia, we offer professional support in the implementation and execution of product and supply chain compliance. You cannot deal with supply chain compliance if you are in trading consumer goods without looking at products, vice versa. They are intertwined. Non-food consumer products in our main regions focus is EU, EEA, and UK market, but you can use Productipedia for the rest of the world as well. We are independent. We are not a lab, not an inspection organization. We are not a trading standards or market surveillance authority, nor a sourcing platform or an NGO. Started with the idea in 2007, live in 2009, and in the meantime, we are with a team of 60 people. How do we do it, or how does it been running? We are web-based software as a service. The IP stands for Information Platform and IP Address. I'm Casper, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm one of the two guys that came up with this idea. Maarten van der Dussen is the other one, but I cannot do this without my brilliant colleagues. We are also a proud partner of skeleton athlete Kimberly Bos. The skeleton season has started last week, and we're happy to be in the newspapers all across when she has started the season. Why are we doing this Compliance Tuesday session? Well, I always say a large part of the problem is that we don't understand the problem. And if two sides are discussing something, but they don't really understand what the problem is, then there's a language barrier. There's a timing priority issue. So our goal is to make things a little bit more clear for you so that you can have a better discussion internally, externally, with customers, with suppliers, and also with us. So it saves all of us a lot of time. Although it is a French legislation, we do start in Brussels. The European Commission is using a station as analogy for main topics and legal trains. There are 6 main platforms at the European legal train station, and in total, there is around 580 plus legal trains. That is our scope and more. You need to read them all to understand what is relevant for you. And today, 584. We call it the regulatory tsunami. You have seen the word. But the option that you have is ride the wave. That's probably best for entrepreneurs. It's either there, it's not, these things are not a problem because you cannot solve them. They are facts. You can only solve dealing with them. Today, we actually are looking at the European Green Deal, but then in a little bit a different way. The Green Deal has all kind of targets set for all member states, and the French already had some goals and targets, and things are not going fast enough. So basically they are running a little bit ahead of the rest of the world. That is important to know. What they are doing there is often conceived as trouble, and why are the French doing this? but you need to place it in a broader context because it's not going away at all. And what the French are doing, you also could look at it, why I'm not preparing or even using this for other products. So the bridge is that the target for them, the goal is they want to provide consumers with good information on environmental qualities and characteristics of waste generating products. Okay, informing consumers, allowing them to make conscious decisions. Well, that can't be wrong in general. And that is main part of a lot of legislation that the EU is developing as well. So you will see in the presentation also on some topics, the EU is catching up with what the French already are doing. And you can say that's double work. No, it's not really when it's about collecting information. It might be when you look at, I need to change my packaging, but you anyway always have requirements for countries when you are selling products in certain EU states because there's language differences. They want obviously to stimulate the reduction of waste, increase the use of recycled material, increase the repairability of products, which can't be wrong, prevent the use of precious metals and rare earth materials, which is relevant, create awareness of the presence of SVACs, substances of very high concern, and plastic microfibers. Well, SVHCs, they are not new, and the obligation to inform other business partners, B2B, was already there, and to register them now at SCIP database is already there for a year and a half, even longer. So it's not new. You should have the information. And they want to prevent greenwashing. So I would like to switch here to this Mentimeter and take you along a couple of questions. It doesn't hurt. It's anonymous. So this presentation, you can take out your smartphone and scan the QR code and join me for 2-3 minutes because I think it's relevant to see where we are all on a couple of topics before I continue. So you can either go to www.menti.com and enter 48111267 or scan the QR code. We are with 76, so I'll wait till we are with at least 30. At least 30. Yes. Good. Come on. Thanks. So I just told you what their goals are, and I would like to take you to a couple of questions. Do you see green, and green is green claims, to be great as a marketing tool? What do you think? You know, you still can join the session by going to the QR code in between. So the world is a little bit tending of the 47, 48. Oh, wait, people still voting. 50 are joining. It's great, guys. So the majority says, yes, green is great as a marketing tool. Okay. %67%. Are you using green claims on your products for brand? Could be the packaging, could be related to the product, could be related to materials used. Okay. So the majority of those that answer this question are using green claims. Cool. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you go home, you're a consumer. Do you think green is relevant for you? Are you looking for that? And the majority of you say yes, which is interesting. I will show you later why this is interesting. You know, green to be relevant or environment is relevant. It's two different things. Would you could say ESG, CSR topics, is repairability relevant for your company? I mean, it saves cost when products last longer, and it's a good argument maybe to consumers that repairability is relevant. Not everybody has products that can be repaired, obviously. You know, and not are to be repaired. Some are just static deco products, for example. Would you say repairability is relevant for you as a consumer? I think in many cases, it only becomes relevant when it cannot be repaired, or you've just discovered that the repair costs are almost the same as a new product. Then it becomes very relevant at that sense. So it can. All right. Good. Thanks. How about recycling? Do you think that recyclability of products is relevant for your company? Okay. You would say this is the obvious yes, right? And for you as a consumer? Obvious yes as well. The reason why I ask these questions is when I go back to the presentation. Thanks for participating. I will share the results with the slides as well. If I go back to the presentation, is that one of the reasons why we are doing this compliance Tuesday on this topic is that it has a very negative aura around it. There's the French again. I even post on LinkedIn, is this a European approach? And in fact, I will post later that indeed it is. We all just said that it is very relevant. So isn't it a little bit ironic that we are now complaining about the work that is linked to it? Maybe it's the reason that we think it's just a lot of work that we only use it for France, but there's nobody stopping it for using it in any other countries that you are dealing with. One of the questions in the context is often, can the French just do this, just like that? Can countries make national legislation that seem to be against other things that we already have in Europe? The answer is no. Any member state can make national legislation, obviously, because there's need for national legislation. There are different things in certain countries. You can have different ways of building things, etc. But there is a system, a route, and it's called TRIS. And the goal is the prevention of technical barriers to trade. National legislation has to be brought into TRIS system first by any country. Yeah. They have to announce it there. They have to share it there. They have to explain why they feel it's relevant and not against any of the European legislations that are there. And all the other member states have 6 months to respond, to object even. I can argue, I can live with this, but you need to change this clause. The originator can limit the scope to 3 months in urgent cases. The EU Commission will also review it. The review is a basic checklist with around 16 points. It's always the same. If there are no objections, then it will become a national law. Yeah? There are many categories of legislation, obviously, and you can even subscribe on TRIS to say, I just want to be informed if in this category member states are bringing new proposals. Yeah? So that is the official process. And in this case, it seems like the French are adding so many different things that this could be a trade barrier. But actually, you don't need to change the product at all. You know, they don't say that you have to use recycled material. They just say, I want you to inform our customers, your customers, our consumers, your consumers, about aspects of the product, obviously in the French language, which you cannot object to. You don't need, in many cases, change anything on the packaging. You need to do it online. It's just the predecessor of the digital product passport. It's, you know, it's sharing information that is relevant to let consumers make a well-informed decision. Just in the Mentimeter, you actually said that this is relevant for you as well. It would be different if you really need to modify product. You can say, yeah, but I need to have some information on the product that links to a website. You anyway need to tell the consumer who you are. So, and a digital address is in many EU legislations as well, or coming. Yeah, so it's not really new. It would be different if you really need to modify the product. Nobody is stopping you to say in other EU member states, these are the aspects that our product complies with, or statements about the products based on French decree, you know, it's allowed. You just need to be true. So there's 11 aspects. Now maybe this is the thing where you say, okay, now this is too much. It's 11. Why and how? Okay, but I have a table. It's not 11 unique things in that sense. I think you already have a lot of this information. You just not have placed it in the context. Inform the consumer about waste prevention and management. This is the basic stuff where it links to. This is like 3-man, how to recycle the packaging, and very soon also how to recycle the product. Is this fair to ask from people offering products to the market? I think so. Would it be great if it would be harmonized in Europe? Yeah, you know, last week they were voting about recycle instructions in the new packaging and packaging waste legislation that's coming, and there it's actually said that this has to become harmonized. Okay, then we all have it for all countries, but anyway, you need to have some information about the packaging. Is it paper? Is it plastic? Are there recycled materials used, etc.? Yeah. For electrical and electronic equipment only, and then within that a limited scope, there is information required about repairability, and in the future durability index, which is a little bit the same. You know, if you already are familiar with durability when you look at LED bulbs, you know, and the energy label, also for other products, energy label is also, is it worth spending this much money for a lamp that saves me energy over such a long time? You know, this is also durability, but this is about repairability, electrical and electronic equipment. Consumer information related to the use of compostable packaging. And I will go to aspect by aspect. Compostable packaging. This is a green claim, okay? Information on the use of recycled material for product and packaging. This is a green claim. So much percentage of this is recycled. Information on the use of reusable or refillable packaging. Okay, this is already one of the aspects that is really directing to food containers, yeah, reusable or refillable packaging. Information related to the presence of precious metals. Oh, there's a lot of products that have gold, silver, palladium, etc. in the product, and you just need to tell in milligrams how much is there. Same with rare earths. Rare earth materials, they're scarce, so we need to make clear how much of those are there. The reason is also when people know that actually these materials are in products, they are more likely to participate in recycle programs because they can, you know, consumers are becoming more and more educated. Substances of very high concern, over 0.1%. You anyway already had to know this. So the French says it's relevant for consumers to know it. In the proposal of the new toys legislation, it's there as well. The fact that there is a skip legislation saying that you need to register at the AGEC skip database when there's more than 0.1% of an SVC in a product. It doesn't mean that you cannot voluntarily tell your consumers about it and explain why. You know, we're all a little bit nervous about it, but we are all adults in the room, not elephants in the room. Information related to the traceability of products, that is coming. This is first on apparel and footwear, but you can see it in EU legislation, for example, in the batteries and in the EU deforestation-free products. It's not new. So if you're feeling, I'm reading this, oh, this is about traceability and transparency supply chain, I don't want to share it, as they would say in Seinfeld, yada, yada, yada. You know, this is not going away. This is the future of dealing with selling products in the EU. I think we're all in for a reality check and say, okay, given the fact that this is the future scope, how are we going to deal with this as an organization, as a brand, communication-wise, information-wise? And perhaps you come to the conclusion that the future of your company is different than it was yesterday, which is normal for any company, even for productivity. You know, it's evaluation and evolution. Somebody asked me, can you share the slide deck with us after the presentation? Yes, you will have the right to download and view the video. Very actual, plastic microfibers. This is not the same as the EU AGEC decision that was, what, October, 2 months late, 2 months ago, but it's similar. This is not the plastic microfibers that are in all kind of detergents or in glitters, but this is in fabric and apparel. Prohibiting using misleading environmental claims. Well, you can have an opinion, but apparently it is needed to prevent consumers to be subjected to claims that are not true. There's actually already a lot of legislation there, not on the compliance side, that prohibits companies to make claims that are not true, because it's just cheating. Going back to this decree, there's a lot of discussion, and I refer to my colleague Saskia and Elvira Fay, who came back with, there's a lot of questions on when and for who this is actually relevant. Because there's like a threshold in time for turnover and article items. Yeah? So if you look at the turnover table, you could say, oh, it starts with large corporation first, and then if I'm SME just doing 10 million, then I will be hit January 25. And same with, okay, if it's not the money, but there is a threshold on numbers of products that you place on the market in the categories that are there. To be honest, I think from the number of units of all the products concerned you place on the market, most of you will be in this scope. Yeah. If not, then you will really be an SME. However, if your business is private label and you are private labeling products for your customer and they are in this scope, then basically you are in the scope as well, because they will need to have information in their name. And as they buy the product from you, they will buy the product from you with the information that they need. And you are in it. I always look at these things and say, okay, let's start. You know, the reason why SMEs are given more time is probably because we need more time. We are not having all the staff and resources to cover this instantly, or more instantly than large companies have, cannot make the resources available. So use the time. Yeah. What is it? Or for what is it? Yeah. There are in France already a lot of extended producer responsibility programs. They have to do with recycling and basically everything that was covered or is covered under any of those responsibilities is in the scope. And more or less, that are almost all the products, you know, in the non-food sector. Obviously, the scope is when products are placed on the French market. Yeah, so they use the word importer into the French market. Obviously, there is not an importer officially, because you can just drive with a truck into the French market. Or you make products in France, then you are a manufacturer in France for sales in France, or you brand. A brand owner in France is also seen as a manufacturer. What they do here, they align the supply chain roles with the other European legislation, which makes sense. The turnover threshold, and one of the questions that we had previously was, is this then the turnover in any of the product categories or in the product itself? And do I need to have 50 million or 10,000 or 20,000 pieces of that product? No, it's either the turnover of all the products in the scope, or it's a total number of all the units in the scope. Okay, 20,000 units of all the products in the scope. I think many of you, if not all, will have this. You know, are you selling 20,000 units of all the SKUs that you have in that scope in 1 year? I think so. And it's counting after March 22. So, you know, everything that you put on the market before that was not in the scope. But anyway, that deadline is passed. So I think if you are in the product categories, packaging, every product has packaging, electronics and electrical products, batteries, construction materials, etc., you are in the scope. Consumer products only, that is relevant. So it's because, you know, the goal is to let consumers and users that make a purchase decision a conscious decision about that. It's not about this. Is it also about this, Cas? Is it about this? No, it's not about this. This is it's in the same corner of legislation, and they also refer to extended producer responsibilities. And the 2021/835 is going to be modified, where it's not only having recycle instructions for the packaging, but also recycle instructions for the product. Where do you need to bring back the pool table or the ping pong table, either to a recycle scheme somewhere or a shop, etc. So the French will come up with some recycle instructions. Interesting enough. This is discussed with Arthur, our regulatory expert team leader, and we are foreseeing a special session for this, probably Q1 2024. Interesting how they develop this. The table is relevant, maybe a little bit hard to read a slide, but you will get this slide deck. On the horizontal row, you will see those aspects that we just mentioned in the 11 aspects. And on the left side, you see the various EPR, extended producer responsibility related schemes, and for which what is applicable. So you can see one column is checked all the boxes. That's the presence of dangerous substances. So for all of these products, the moment you have SVHCs over 0.1%, you need to inform. You have to understand that the information duty for the aspects that are relevant for these products is always there. So for example, incorporation of recycled material, column 2, if you have non-recycled material used during the production of the packaging or the product, then you cannot leave this out. Then you need to tell that there is none used. So this is really comparing those that make an effort with those that don't make an effort in the market. And we just answered, 47% said recycling is relevant for you as a consumer. That was the Mentimeter. So you can see why I did this. Household packaging, printed paper, it has different boxes ticked than, for example, electrical and electronic equipment. Yes, there's no precious metals and rare earths used in packaging, so there's no need to ask for that kind of information. Traceability and the presence of microplastic fibers is only for textile products, apparel, linen, and shoes. Yeah. So you see, the aspects are there. Not all the aspects are relevant for each product, but if they are checked, then you need to have an answer on that aspect. And you cannot say, since there are no dangerous substances, I don't do anything. No, you say there are no dangerous substances. It's like a claim. This claim needs to be true. It's like a declaration. So it's not just, okay, let's make something up. Yeah, you can do it, but you can held liable for it. Yeah. Let's go over the top row and then from left to right. What about compostability? It was just mentioned for packaging and printed paper. You can no longer make any compostability claim for packaging and printed paper. The reason is that, in fact, they are not good, not true, and we don't want it to be compostable. You want to recycle it. Yeah. You can have these claims only when these claims are certified by, for example, eco-label scheme. Yeah. This is actually not just for the French market. The European legislation is moving into that direction as well. You can only make such green claims, when they are certified. So don't do it. You cannot use it, take it off. Yeah, but we think we are, or my factory says it is. No, only if you are joining the eco-label scheme, then you can do it. How about recycled material? You need to indicate at least X% of the material used is recycled. You cannot say a range, like packaging material contains between ta-ta-ta and ta-ta-ta. For example, we have one part of the material, let's say a carton box, and it has 50% of the material recycled, and then we have plastic, and it has 30% of the recycled. Then we have a tape somewhere, which is small tape, it has 80% recycled. Then we can say, okay, the plastic was 30% and the tape was 80%, and then we can say our packaging material contains between 30 and 80% recycled material. No, you need to you use the lowest threshold, and you say of the material. So at least 30% of the material used are recycled is a different kind of claim. You understand that, right? So don't upgreen your claims here. What if the information is not available? In that case, as I told you, the answer is the product does not contain recycled material. There will be a special arrangement for leather, and there is an FAQ document that explains that. There's various different topics that really require in-depth information, and they will be shared with you. What about renewable resources? Okay, this is really, really very specific. It's for construction products only. There's an environmental code that I would like to refer to and not go into the details of that, as it's, I would say, very industry specific and not really suitable for the general audience that you are. How about reuse? Okay, this is more for food, feed containers, mandatory statements. It's either reusable packaging or refillable packaging. There's a separate decree on that because, you know, this is the degree. Where do I need to bring it for that it be reused or refilled? And very specific topic as well. Then, where you also saw the new logos coming, how can it be recycled? So there will be a sort of scheme marking how to point consumers to recycling channels. Do you need to bring it back to the store? Is it the recycle platform that many of the communities have? But point 3 is relevant. There should be nothing interfering with the sorting and recycling. That means from a design point of view, you need to consider that things can be recycled. Look at the battery legislation on European level. If batteries cannot easily be taken out, what are you actually then recycling? Yeah? And only if at least 50% of the mass of the product can be recycled and reused for a similar product, then you can use wording like the product is recyclable into a product of the same nature, or the packaging is recyclable too, and packaging or same. So you don't need to do that, but if you want to have any claims, you need to make the product in such a way, or the packaging in such a way, that at least for 50% that's true. For packaging, if you have labeling that you put on carton boxes, but you cannot get this label off that carton, is that carton then still recyclable or not? Even in Sweden, they have basic tests on, I don't know, 1 minute hot air, 60 degrees, and then you should be able to take off the label and the glue. Then you can reuse the carton. It's in this kind of way. If you stick things on products, if you have plastic that you cannot tear off paper, then it doesn't work. Is recyclability about the technical possibility or the actual recycling? It's about the technical possibility. Can it be in principle? Yeah. And so that's really interesting. For electronics, I think we'll be surprised how much gold, silver, platinum, or palladium is in some of our smartphones and other products. Either you declare at least X milligram or X milligram of gold, silver, platinum. So either the generic, or you write, instead of precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, or palladium. It doesn't say that you need to tell how much gold or silver is there. It's always a total. So what is the total of precious metals? Oh, I don't know. Well, if you are in the electronics business, pretty sure somebody will know, because these metals will be recycled for sure. They are valuable. And the same for rare earths. They are also used in chips and other electronics. So the moment you are running into more or less sophisticated electronics, you run into rare earths because they are used in chipsets. Here the same, I think everybody will opt for contains at least X milligram of rare earths rather than mentioning all the rare earths. They're probably names that for sure I have never heard of. Praseodymium, and I wouldn't recognize it if I run into it, but I know rare earths are rare earths. Yep. So we need to have these declarations. This one might be really challenging because many of us just say, okay, we have a statement and we don't have any SVCs, but it's very difficult to live up to that statement. The presence of hazardous substances are two-legged. One is the SVCs, substances of very high concern, and the other one is anything that is equivalent considered as a risk by the French National Agency ANSES. And there are now 2 substances there per September 15, 2023. So the scope is a little bit extending. Germany had other hazardous substances in their scope, or still has. So it's not new entirely. What you see here is that, and maybe some of you as a customer or brand will say, we don't want any substances that are CMR. Yeah, have a CMR indication, can give you cancer or influence your reproduction organs, or mutatoxic, influence your DNA. Number 1 and 2, every 6 months, new SVCs. Number 2, keep an eye on that one. This explains why the requirement is there to keep the information up to date. So if you see and publish information, or learn to publish information on this, it's always per a certain date. And you need to continue to monitor as long as you put that product again on the market. You know, it's no use to keep information up to date on products that you no longer have on the market. Yeah, they're already sold. But as long as you're still selling them, and that's like 2 or 3 or 4 years, they can still be on the shelf. You need to keep the information up to date, because the substances might be in there and was not relevant at the moment, but may be relevant later as a risk. The logic is equal, 0.1% threshold for skip notifications. Yeah. Either you mention this on your product sheet, digital product sheet, or you mention there that actually the information on chemicals is available via the Scan for Chem app. Not quite sure on the status of that project, but it's a European-wide project. It makes sense. You know, if you are participating in such a project because you are using that in communication in other EU member states, then you don't need to mention the details here for the French authorities. All right. Then, textile products, clothing, linen, and footwear. Traceability. You need to inform the consumer about the area or country of weaving, dyeing, printing, assembly of the clothing, and for footwear, quilting, assembling, and finishing. Either the country, the region in the country. If you don't know anything about certain regions in the country, then there's no predominant area because, you know, it's a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. Then you just mention the country. Yeah, but then everybody knows from which country the product comes. Yeah, we already know. So it's not a secret. But there's a link between making statements about products coming from certain countries and other aspects that companies have to comply with. And these are running into ESG, CSR statements. You know, if it's clear statement here that certain parts or products are made in certain countries, and countries will have certain risk categories in general, then you need to match other report obligations. So traceability for textile products. And related to textile products, clothing, linen, and footwear, scope is clear. When 50% of the product is considered to be made out of microfibers, then you need to have a statement, releases plastic microfibers into the environment during washing. I think it won't take many, many years ahead to ban this completely. It doesn't really make sense if we ban the microfibers from the soap that you use to wash your clothes when we are still washing out clothes from, when we still are washing out microfibers from clothes. But as soon as your product has more as 50% of microfibers, then you need to have this statement. Somebody says, is made in the same as this? Does made in replace this kind of information? No, because made in often refers to assembly of the clothing or finishing of the footwear. These are actually, you need to mention these 3 different steps. And this is not mentioned on the product, it's mentioned on a product sheet that need to be digitally available. This information is not mandatory to be on packaging. It needs to be clear how to access that information. It's also information per SKU, which could be daring for textile. So I can imagine that it's for a line of products. This one, microfibers we had. Greenwashing ban. Prohibited. You cannot use any green claims. Oh, but it's very relevant for me. We just did a Mentimeter. We need to send the Mentimeter results to the French government because we just came to the conclusion that it's very relevant. This product is biodegradable. This product is environmental friendly. But don't forget, Europe is developing legislation because I think you'll be in for a surprise if you really will dive into green washing, as we call it. More as 50% of the claims are actually wrong or misleading or fake. So it could mean anything. And 40% of the claims have actually no supporting evidence. So it's just made up, you know. And the last point is even maybe more concerned. I think we as a group answering these questions are a little bit biased. We have interest to believe that consumers trust it, but the reality is consumers don't trust green claims at all. So I think it's always relevant. Consumers should be able to trust the promise of the brand. So Product IP says a world in which products can be trusted, that means products under a brand as well, is extremely relevant. And we have created confusion. There's unbelievable number of sustainability labels, 230, and they all have different levels of transparency. Some actually are just invented for their own cause. Yeah, 50% of them lack verification, and there are already for a long time, 20 plus years, EU eco labels. The thing is, if you think there's a green claim to be made, you can bring in that certification scheme basically into the EU eco label program. They can look at it. Is it certifiable? Is it significant? Does it add something to the existing programs? And when so, then you have a EU eco label program, but others can use it as well. Yeah, yes. You know, if you have a sustainable label that's only connected to your brand, then it will be difficult to have that certified. But you need to get it certified in order to be able to use it in the future. The fact that there's 230 already results in confusion and lack of trust. Yeah. So how does this then look? What is the end result of this, what you can call product sheet? I took an example. I took a very popular one. Non-affiliated. I even don't have this model, but it's online available for all of the products. Actually, many of the big brands have these things online available, but it should be online available. So it says what it is, and then it has different table sections. And obviously the information has to be in the French language. And there's one first table about characteristics of the product. You can see the first one. How about the percentage of recycled materials in the product? 90%. Can it be recycled? For the majority, it can be recycled. So that means 50% more. Yeah. Otherwise, they cannot make that claim. Any substances of very high concern in it? Yes, lead. There's a small 3. They explain it later. It's almost unavoidable to have electronic products without substances of very high concern is almost impossible. So you need to realize that if you are in the electronics and electrical product business and there's any technology in there, I'm not talking about just a resistor and a bulb, but as soon as you run into some complex technology products, I think it's not possible to have no substance of very high concern. And they are allowed because they're exceptions of substances of very high concern over 0.1% in certain cases, because otherwise we cannot have this technology. Okay, so you, Casper, you say in certain products it's actually always there, but it is allowed? Yes. Okay. Then you have this statement. 104 milligrams of precious metals, 1910 milligrams of rare earths. Eco-modulation. This has to do with, this is some kind of additional claim on the eco-design. There is a, if you fail to reach certain steps on the eco-design, you could have a penalty. You can get a penalty from the French government, and then you have to mention that here if you're underperforming. So that's for electronic products. In this case, they say there's no penalty because there's also no standard for this moment. But if there was a penalty, you need to say I've been penalized by the French government. Okay, mea culpa. Packaging. 46% of the materials used come from recycled material, and there's a primary and a secondary compartment. Apparently, there's like 2 parts of packaging: a primary and a secondary. And the total. All of the packaging material used can be recycled. Okay. They have a battery, so they have a chapter of product, they have a chapter of packaging, they have a chapter of battery. Makes sense, right? For batteries, again, something on recyclability, can it be recycled? And is there any SVCs in there? Yep. So you can see this split up. Yeah, but Casper, we buy products from 20,000 different suppliers with 40,000 different batteries. Yeah. So the problem is not that you need to tell something about battery. The problem is that you have no idea which battery you use for the next shipment. You can solve these things in two ways. Try to organize what is actually too many, or to limit first what is actually too many, and then organize that. And it's up to you. It's not up to the legislation to organize your business. How about environmental correctness of the paper used? It was recycled. Well, I think that's a manual, what is inside. And then they are explaining a little bit about the 1, 2, 3, the little notes that they had, for example, on the lead. All right? That's it. And there's many, many different examples. That's all? Well, that's all. If you, it's still a lot of work. But if you have 20 products, it's doable. But if you have 2,000 products, it's a lot of work. So one other aspect that is a little bit more work is repairability for electronic and electrical products as well. It's a little bit like an energy label, from poor to very good, and it has different aspects. So within the scope of electronic and electrical products, it's washing machines, vacuum cleaners, smartphones, laptops, tablets, TVs, lawnmowers, and pressure washers. Sorry for that. Will the scope be extended? No doubt it will be extended, but this is the scope for now. You have scores on, can it be repaired? How reliable is it? And how dependable is it on future updates of software and hardware? And how long are these actually available? For that, you can get a score. And the calculation sheets are obviously predefined, which makes sense. Otherwise, we all will do something. And this is like we all design our own energy label. Then you cannot compare things. So you need to make a statement on certain things in order to get a rating. How? Well, there are for each of those products in the product categories very dedicated and detailed XML forms, which is a smart form that you can also open in Excel, for example, or Numbers for Apple. And I must say, yes, there's a lot of things to answer, but I think if you have a range of products, then it becomes more and more easy, because probably the deviations in the answers for different products in the range is not too much. It's really clear. It's in English. It goes in a lot of detail. For example, you need to indicate what kind of tools are required to repair. Why is that needed? Well, if you need very special tools and people don't have them, or you need a lot of tools, then you could say repairability is low. If it's simple, you have just one screwdriver and maybe a hexagon socket key, it becomes easier to repair. Okay. It's all in English. And then there's a final page in French. I will add one XML sheet as an example. You can open it and can have a look. It's a lot of work. Yeah, sure. But the question is, do you need to do this work, or does your supplier need to prepare for this? This is not something that they will have to do for each product. If they have a basic product and they sell it to 3 or 4 OEM customers in Europe, it's better that they know about this and fill it in. But I would be careful if I were you. I would go over the results, because they are a little bit disconnected maybe from ways we are doing things in Europe, and maybe choose another tool or these kind of things. And in the end, it's your responsibility. If I'm an importer and I'm importing products for my retail user and it's their private label program, I'll need to transfer this responsibility. I need to transport this data to the next one in chain. So I'll get the questions anyway. So I need to understand how this works. And again, as I said in the beginning, now the output is in French. I could make the output in Dutch or German or Danish and say, according to the French degree, that number, this version, this is my repairability index. This is not a lie. It's not forbidden to do that. As long as it's not in contesting any other member states' ranking, which are not there at this moment. Surely we need to register somewhere for this. Nope. Okay. And the label is there, yes. But do I need to have this information somewhere in detail? No. But you need to be able to make it available when somebody asks within 15 days of asking. And there was one smart ass that says, "We know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask." And that company has a website, and it's called Indies Repairability, repairabilityindex.fr. They have an option to voluntarily share with them what you have. Yeah. Well, the moment you now say, yeah, then you need to really think about your repairability index, because why would you say, yeah? Why you don't say, yeah? It's marketing, isn't it? Again, bringing it back to the Brussels station, we are looking on a European level and think that they will catch up soon as well. For you to consider, is this good or bad news? For consumers, it's good news. We are not affiliated at all with this index, in this repairability index, but you can go there, and there are, if you think that this is the official website for this repairability index, I think, how can this be so significant when there's only like 600-700 products on there? Yeah. That's not because it's official. This is like an NGO. They are collecting information and displaying it. So they are making use of you need to tell me within 15 days, or maybe some companies were so smart and starting uploading their sheet themselves. Yeah. Have a look, maybe not for smartphones, but maybe you are in the business of vacuum cleaners or lawnmowers. I think, what is my competition doing? How am I ranking? I know in Germany, if you are in the consumer magazines, not so good in the test results there, then this is already relevant. You can say, is repairability a little bit similar? Well, it is a public index in that sense. So it's there. Yep. We are coming to our end of this presentation. What could I do? What should I do? I think for all of these changes, don't wait. It's anyway not going that way, but try to figure out, I always use the 20-80 rule. 20% of your products, services, and clients are responsible for 80% of your business. That's always true. It's the Pareto principle. Don't start with A and finish with Z if E and M and O are the drivers of your business. And when you consider this, I don't know your business. It might be a product customer combination for next year that will be the key for your business. I would say go for that one first. Don't think I'm not in the threshold. Somebody, if you're neglecting this, and then your sales guy or lady makes incredible pitch and gets a huge order from a French customer, but if it's private label and suddenly you're over threshold, then you're in for it. You want to be ready. Be ready. Create a first sheet for one SKU first, so you learn what questions you need to ask, what answers you can get from your supplier, and you get a feeling for how much work it is in terms of time at your end, but also how long does it take before I'm ready. And I'll come to that a little bit later as well, because once you have information, you still need to do something with it. In parallel, as it is digital, create maybe a space on your website for this information, or consider using the product IP public page functionality for that. I would recommend that last one. Obviously, if you are in textile, apparel, linen, footwear, at least pick a product as well, or a product from that scope. Ditto with products in the scope of the repairability index. Use that as well, because you want to run that exercise a couple of times to say, okay, in general, it will take 3 to 4 weeks, and I'll need to spend 4 times half a day or 2 times half an hour. This is necessary for you to understand. Yeah, you need to understand the impact. What about products that are not in the scope? Well, maybe you need to toss them. It's very simple. Kill that part of the business that don't contribute to the business. What if I'm just on the end of the supply chain and I don't need to do anything? Well, you need to consider if your suppliers are doing anything. Verify how they are doing. Be careful if they are selling products to you with green claims. Very relevant. They should have digital summaries on their website. So just ensure that they are aware. And again, 2080 is for you relevant as well. Start with those supply chain partners that are key to your business, because you don't want to run into troubles with market surveillance authorities on the key point of your business. So, and if you are selling private label products, ensure that you get information and you have a place on your website as well, because it's linked to your brand, remember? That's 1 to 10. Obviously, with no numbers, no matter what you do, I highly recommend you use Product FB to keep track of all of the changes, because you know there's like 400 plus average changes a month that our website has, and functionality wise our platform has. It's not your key business to keep track of these changes. It's your key business to ensure that you have viable products for the market. Stop wasting time Googling what's happening in Brussels. That's what we are doing, and not using Google. I also highly recommend, at least for templates, to use our market-leading product artwork check services. Please prevent that your artwork on products, packaging, manuals become low-hanging fruit for market surveillance authorities. I'm stealing one more thing. For this product sheet, packaging, electronics, batteries, rare metals, we will develop a verified smart form, and we'll let you know when it's available. So that will be linked to this requirement. In any file that you make, you can fill it out yourself, web-based on your end, or share it via an email to somebody in the supply chain, or in a colleague that can fill it out on a desktop or laptop or smartphone. I don't care what, but the data will flow back to you. So you have information that you can open up to the public via the public page functionality. We won't make a verified form for the repairability forms. The official forms with all the explanations in English are really the best to use. Where available, and when we can offer them available, we will add them as, or we already have added them as resources in Product FB. That means that they are connected as to a requirement in a file. You can find all the resources that are connected to requirements in the file, always in the technical file in Product FB, right? By the way, public functionality, public page functionality, we already have since November 2010. That's not a typo. We were way ahead of the pack. And obviously, that's what we now sometimes still call public page are slowly morphing into digital passport functionality. That's it. I promised 1 hour pressure cooker session on this French degree. And there is nothing in the chat. There's a question, is recyclability is about technical possibility or actual recycling? I answered that already. Negative mentions are not required according to the FAQ from the FR Ministry if not recyclable or no recyclable material is incorporated. Not in the guide. In the guide, they just say not recycled. So I'll look into that, but if the guide says this, then in general, I feel it's relevant to make a statement in that sense. The consumer will be smart enough. What else? Question: recyclability is not required for textile, footwear, and household linen. Refashion for textile, but statement about it. Correct. It will come, but there is an EPR program in development. So what you here have is you have like a basic frame, French framework, little bit ahead of the European frameworks. The developments generically are the same. Get prepared in general. Envision the future of your company and brand and how you're going to deal with this, and start working on it. For now, that was it. I hope you enjoyed it and hope things be a little bit more clearer. Information will be shared with you. Have a great lunch afternoon. Enjoy it's nice weather now if you're in Holland. Enjoy the weather, and talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.